What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast, and of course our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today we've got a guy guesting on the show named Craig Behrhorst. And if you don't know him, you'll know some of the bands he's affiliated with. He spent time in Laaz Rockit, a band called the Ruffians. He spent time in the Butlers.
He's currently in the Butlers.
He's currently in the Butlers. He's a San Francisco guy, so he grew up in the Bay Area around all the great thrash bands, you know, Exodus, Death Angel, Forbidden, Metallica, Testament. So a lot of great stories, a lot of interaction with a lot of the great bands that went on to huge things. And he has a t-shirt business and just a cool guy with a encyclopedic type knowledge of all things Bay Area hard rock and heavy metal.
He's a great guy. He's an awesome guitar player. He is a great songwriter. He loves, big, heavy rock. He loves metal. But I think you kind of covered it. He's kind of like one of the scene guys, and he's been there since day one. That means he's actually in and presented in Murder in the Front Row, the book, and later the movie. Was interviewed for the movie, knows a few of our past guests, Harry Oyman and Harry O, as we say, and Billy Rowe. He probably knows more than that because he's a staple, and he's a hell of a guy. I've met him out on the road, whether I was in California recording or playing through the Northern California. He would be there at some of my shows and stuff. Super guy. We always connected. I think that it's been an honor to talk to him today and have him on the show, because you know what? He's so much like some of our past guests, such as the names I've already said. He reminds me of Rodney and Sean just as much as it doesn't surprise me that, of course, that he's friends with the folk that he's friends with. Like I said, Billy Rowe. He's known Billy Rowe since 1982 or something. So
yeah. Always interesting to hear it from the perspective of someone who was there on the ground level. And Craig was certainly there on the ground level, and a great musician in his own right. So we're happy to have him on the show. He's going to tell us more about his story. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Behrhorst. What's up, Craig?
How you doing, man? You got a nice rock room. So does Jason.
Yours doesn't look too bad. I see some nice gear back there.
Yeah, a few Les Pauls, a telly. Got some the wall of black and white photos, heroes over there.
Nice.
Got Phil and Steve Marriott, Jimmy Page. Yeah, Gary Moore.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man.
That's a great shirt you're wearing too.
Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, well, we were just chatting about the shirt, and your ears were burning. I know they always are, Dave, because Craig sent me that shirt a while back, and I was like, dude, Vardis, and because Vardis is one of the acts on that. That's like a show poster. That's an event shirt, right?
Yeah.
That was like one of those things where you looked at, when you're a kid, you'd find the hip magazine store. You go find the Enemy and the Sounds magazines, and you'd go in the back immediately and you see all the fucking bands that were playing in England in like 1980, 81. And you're like going, oh, Motorhead, oh man, like Saxon, they'll never come here. Like, Angel Witch, like all these bands that, you thought that you wouldn't get to see. Iron Maiden, are they ever going to make it to the States? And I remember seeing this bill in the back of like a Sounds magazine or whatever.
Yeah, it's like an ad shows up back there, like an ad. And I said, Vardis in what'd you say, White Spirit? What else is on there?
Yeah, White Spirit.
Yeah, White Spirits, and he said that Yannick from Iron Maiden, that was his band.
Yeah, that's why I know that name. That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah. What a fucking lineup, huh?
Yeah,
This was
that's
1980.
Girl School. Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, when you own your own T-shirt business, when you see something cool, you can make like, you know, 3 or 4 of them. So I think I have one of these. My friend Mark DeVito, artist, Gary Holt, and you. So only a handful of them, Jason.
Wow.
I'm in good company.
Yes, you are.
So the interesting thing is, and I didn't want to actually lead with this, is that I wanted to plug. I was planning on doing it later. I wanted to plug your T-shirt printing company, TNT Printing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the clients that you have, are they just like? Do you have big contracts, or are you? I mean, do you? It's your day job, right?
Yeah. It's day job. You know, when I needed a job back in, you know, as a kid, and a kid, it's probably like 19 or 20. I started doing that, working for a guy, and then my business partner now, who's Aaron Jellum, guitar player from Laaz Rockit. Him and I worked together there at this place called Graphic Traffic. It was a T-shirt shop in Oakland, and so yeah, then we kind of started doing shirts on the side for our friends here and there, our friends' band and all this sort of stuff. And we had a guy that we knew, this guy named Mark, and Mark was a hustler from Oakland, and he was doing all the NWA shirts. And so we would rent a friend's shop. So we could go print all these NWA shirts for him. He'd run them from Oakland down to Compton and come back, you know, give us the money. And so we started saving our money to buy equipment so we could start our own T-shirt shop because, you know, we like the fact of, you know, we weren't making any money playing music. So and,
imagine that.
Yeah, very little. Yeah, very little. So yeah, we started doing that, and we were like going NWA, okay. And I wasn't really hip to them too much, but Aaron kind of heard about them, and we're printing this like a shirt that was drawn up a caricature of all the guys. It was like drawn by one of their friends. It was like Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Yella. I'm like, well, who's a Yella and a Dr. Dre? Like, you know, and
well, you didn't know yet. None of us knew yet what was about to fucking go down. You know,
over. Yeah.
This was early on, man. I mean, this is the first shirts that these guys made, and so yeah, it was pretty funny. So the heavy metal kids started their shop with money from NWA. That's kind of how that worked out.
Thank you, Dre and Cube, for getting that going, man.
Yeah.
Now they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I couldn't be happier that they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame myself, because, dude, those guys are hardcore. Those guys can fucking rock. So I think that they're well deserving, because they broke a lot of rules, man.
Yeah, they definitely did. They're outlaws for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, that's how we started our T-shirt business, and been doing that over the years, and managing to you know, have a business and you know, play music as well and stuff like that. You know, you got to be the owner if you're gonna, you know, leave and go on tour for 3 weeks in Europe or something.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Something your friend Billy Rowe knows very well, right?
Yeah. Billy's managing it quite well, man. He's got a very successful guitar company, Rock and Roll Relics, and it's really taken off, man. And he's able to still do the you know, go out and play with Buck Cherry now. So yeah, really happy for him. He's killing it. Yeah.
I saw him about 6 weeks ago. Buck Cherry came through Texas, and I went to the show and got to hang out and talk to him for a little while. And I asked him, you know, how's the business running while it was the first night of the tour, actually. I said, you're going to be out for about a month or 6 weeks. How's the business going back home? And he goes, well, you know, you hire some guys you can trust, and you check in every day and just, you know, make it happen. And I guess he's doing that. So good for him.
He's the good boss.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of good guys. One guy that's been with him for a long time. So he's making some nice guitars, man.
Yeah, Scott Dalhoover from Dangerous Toys. He's a builder as well, and has a little company, and his guitars they're fucking awesome. And all the guys on the Toys play them. Play them. Mike on bass and Paul. That's all Paul plays exclusively now, and of course Scott. But the point was that Scott and Billy, I saw them on the ship multiple times, just like in each other's face, going, dude, just talking guitar builder nerd shit. And I was like, stand back, everyone, just be an explosion here in a minute. So, you know.
They're talking about 500K pots and like, right. 0.22 value capacitors, and everybody else is like, woo!
Well, but they're also talking about fret wire.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Got to have the fat frets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, not to interject, but like, how was the cruise, man?
It was probably, I've done about 10 of them now. I did like 4 or 5 with Broken Teeth, and I've done like 4 or 5 now with the Toys. And I was saying this on my first cruise with Broken Teeth, which seems like forever ago. Because I've only done them like, you do one and then it's 2 years later, 2.5 years later, you get to do another one, then a year and a half, and you do another one, and so on and so on. So, that ate up, 15 years, right? So this is probably the best one. I don't know if it's because the world shut down and everyone's just hungry to do it. And drinking the punch, so to speak, in order to do it. Yeah, I'll do whatever. Just get me out of the fucking house. I want to see some rock and roll. But, I got to say, and I've said this 1,000 times after I did a couple of them, it's kind of saving rock and roll, because a lot of our people, rock fans and rock bands of a certain age, can't necessarily, who didn't like sell quite enough records to just I'm going on tour for a year, and that sustainability didn't get to invited to that party for whatever reason. The cruises, the Monsters of Rock cruise in particular, I feel like is saving rock and roll in a big way, as well as all the other cruises, the Kiss cruise, the Mega cruise, the motorboat, the 200 tons of steel or whatever, or the extreme metal cruise or whatever. It's to put it in a box, it's saving rock and roll, because all of the bands, whether it be 5 bands or 40 bands, because the Monsters thing is like, you saw the lineup, it's like, I get tired reading the back of the event shirt, I'm serious. There's like 40 bands on there. You're like, what the? My head is spinning. How are they going to cram all this into 5 days? Well, they fucking do it.
So it's a festival. What were one of the highlight bands that you saw? Who was on there that you really dug?
Well, I only got to stick my head into Buck Cherry for a couple songs, but they were a highlight. Of course, Alice. I saw Alice both nights, and he's mind-blowing all the time. Yeah. And I saw Rhino Bucket, of course.
Didn't you have Rhino Bucket on stage with you? Or George, at least?
No, Scott pulled George up on the first night in the theater. Okay. And we put a guitar on him and spun him around and watched him go, and it was awesome. Yeah. And then, let's see, Kix, of course. Saw Kix a couple times.
Those guys have been around for a long time, man.
Yeah. They're kings. Everybody steals from them. Everyone who plays any kind of butt rock has stolen from those guys. And they can still do it. They're kings. They're definitely like, they're knights of the round table of rock, The
70s, man. They started in the 70s.
That's right. Well, the second night they played like a bunch of shit off the first record. And I was talking to Jimmy Chalfant, the drummer, and he was like, dude, those songs are hard to play. There's some songs on there I can barely, I'm like, how did I go? Oh, shit, missed it. He's like, he was telling me the scoop, and it was just a delight. But I think that these cruises are saving rock and roll because you don't have to hit the road and you get to play 2 or 3 shows and meet your fans one-on-one. The pay is good, if not great. There's a merch table a mile long. It's a festival on a ship.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
great.
That sounds great, man. It sounds like you guys had a good time.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of bands that canceled. Y&T, Rose Tattoo, one
LA
of the
Guns, Michael
Yeah, LA
Monroe.
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
man, some of the heavy hitters, man. Those would have been great bands.
Some of the cool underground favorites, had to let it go
They
because
canceled just because they weren't ready to do it yet, I guess, huh? Or
COVID.
well,
I guess they're overseas, so
they have to go through too many customs, and if you have to test every time you go through a customs check.
Yeah.
And
I know
so
in the case of LA Guns, it was COVID. Tracy, I guess, lives in Denmark now, and his kid brought home COVID from school, and the whole family got COVID. And so Tracy wasn't going to test positive, or I'm sorry, wasn't going to test negative. So the LA Guns had to pull out. I don't know about the other bands, but I know that's the case with LA Guns.
It's safe.
Y&T, man, Y&T, hometown favorites here. They're like blue collar rock and roll guys.
Yes.
They're a big inspiration to me when I was growing up here.
They're
because,
they're kings like Kicks. Been around forever, been doing it forever, and just kick ass all
Still
the
great.
time.
Dave is like he's a Bay Area treasure, man. I mean, he's one of those talented guys to come out of the Bay Area. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
and he's he's been doing all the heavy lifting in that band for years, and that's why they're able to still do it with out. Unfortunately, all 3 of the other original members passed away, but
Right.
and he's still holding the torch, man.
Yeah. I've been in bands that have covered his shit.
Yeah.
Like Watchtower used to cover Y&T, dude.
Yeah.
Crazy. We did Hurricane. I swear we did another one, but I remember doing Hurricane because we did it every gig until we didn't do it.
F sharp heavy down.
Yeah. Yes. So good.
Craig, let's introduce Craig to our listeners and give them a sense of who it is we're talking to, because we just kind of got lost on the backyard barbecue.
Yeah, let's do that.
conversation.
But I want to say this right now. There is a huge reason that's sort of like this whole, there's a reason that he's here, and the reason that he's here is that Craig is one of us. He's like one of our friends, Dave. He's like Sean Weingarten or Rodney Dunsmore or something like that. But he's also an excellent documented musician, and he's not just a dude in a band. He's the dude in a band. And Craig, I really just wanted to like hang out with you on our show for many, many, many reasons. And we've got a couple of stories we can tell, but I want Dave to sort of like cut the cake and get into your world real quick.
Yeah. So for people listening and watching, we've got Craig. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Bearhorst.
Bearhorst. Craig Behrhorst, and San Francisco guy, San Francisco area, and as such has played in a number of bands from that area, and has also, kind of hobnobbed with a lot of the bands that we're familiar with. Of course, San Francisco being a hotbed of hard rock and especially thrash. You've got Exodus, Death Angel, Testament, Metallica, Possessed, Violence. The list goes on and on. And you're friends with Billy Rowe. I know you play in the Butlers, and I think you might have been in a version of. You were in Laaz Rockit for a moment or a little while. Maybe American Heartbreak with Billy Rowe. No, not American Heartbreak.
But yeah, I am a few bands over the years. I started off first band I played that you guys would know was Laaz Rockit at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And that was a short spell. Me and Michael Coons and Aaron Jellum. We'd start the band, and I was still in high school. I was a pretty young guy, and then that didn't work out. And
what year was that?
What's that?
What year was that? I'm just trying to date you.
In like 82. Yeah. Like,
oh, wow.
I think the majority, like all of 82, something like that. And then right after that, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, what was the style, and what were maybe some of the cover songs you were doing in 82? Because, that was right when I was just kind of getting started myself, and I know what I was covering. You never forget, right? What songs were you guys
Yeah,
doing?
I mean, of course we're doing stuff like, breaking the law, things like
Yeah.
that. But man, we got into originals pretty quick, man. We're writing our own
Awesome.
stuff, right out of the gate. And started playing all the clubs, started playing a couple backyard parties, and then we got into clubs. And we were playing, the old Waldorf, which was like a sort of historic place in San Francisco. And we were playing the Keystone Berkeley, and all those sort of places. And then, yeah, we played the second time Metallica came up from LA, we played with them, and that was at the old Waldorf. And it was, they played before us, which was like, kind of, because we'd kind of already been playing up here. We had our fan base and all that. And they were from out of town.
And that's with Ron McGovney.
Yeah, Ron
Dave
and
Mustaine.
Dave Mustaine's play guitar. And but yeah, it was cool. I saw their sound check, and I was like, woo, man. Like, I hadn't seen a band play with that many sort of different time signatures, playing that fast. Not a local band anyway, and they weren't local yet. And so I was like, oh man, we're in for a surprise here, dude. And so they had their heavy fan base because, of course, Ron Quintana really pushing them on Rampage Radio, and they'd been up here one time before. They played the Stone, but yeah, that was pretty cool. And then got to know those guys and stuff. And then after that, I started the band Ruffians, and that was with a few Berkeley guys that I grew up with, and Carl Albert was the singer in that band, and who went on to be the singer in Vicious Rumors after.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that was like around 83, 84. We put out an album in 85. Ruffians did, and we put it out ourselves, and it was released on SPV Records in Europe, and released on that FEMS label in Japan. And so, Ruffians was my band, sort of like the mid 80s to the late 80s. And
you guys were in all of the fanzines and stuff that Watchtower was like aching to get into. You guys were already in there.
Yeah, we got a lot of coverage, man. Ruffians did in Europe and Japan, and we just did the underground approach, man. And we had a good distribution in the States to put out the record, and getting signed to pretty decent labels in both Japan and Europe. Yeah, it was cool, man. We had fun, and we're doing heavy metal. It was like melodic metal with Carl Albert. I mean, he was a great fucking singer. Yeah. And then, the thrash kind of came along, and, we got kind of left in the dust by that. And we had some heavy stuff, but, we didn't really, I sat down with a couple people, and, with a label that was like a label that we both know out of LA at the time, that was Metal Blades, and hey man, well, if you can kind of do this and do this, like we're they wanted to identify Barry bands with kind of thrash, but it wasn't really our thing. It wouldn't have felt natural for us to go, okay, we're gonna play thrash all of a sudden. Yeah. So would you say that Laaz Rockit was coming up, was happening the same time that the Ruffians were happening, and Laaz Rockit considered a thrash band or not? I don't know. I would say that Laaz Rockit, yeah, they were signed to who did they sign on to?
Target.
Target.
Yeah.
Texas label, right?
I don't know where they're based out of. I know Legs Diamond, the Out on Bail record, is on Target, and I know City's Gonna Burn is on Target. I don't know, honestly, much else on that label. Yeah. I don't know where they're based.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that they were doing their thing, man, and like all the thrash bands, bands like whatever. I mean, Exodus or Forbidden or people like are Possessed. I mean, these guys were like, they love Laaz Rockit, man. I mean, they loved, you know, Ruffians, and we were, you know, inspiration to them because we're kind of there before. But no, those bands came along, and you know, those guys have said that. Oh man, fuck! I remember going to seeing Ruffians at like Keystone Berkeley and all sort of stuff, and they came along and did their thing, and got signed in the thrash movement, and they were great bands. You know, I mean, you know, all those bands that got signed out of the Bay Area around that time. But to answer your question, I think it was sort of borderline with Laaz Rockit, and I don't know if they're going in that thrash. You know, they're more melodic, and whether that, you know, ended up.
I always thought, not to interrupt again, but we talk over each other all the time, so it does.
We're excited, rock and roll.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I feel like we're trying to hang out for 10 hours in like an hour and a half. So the you know, the Laaz Rockit stuff that I've heard just throughout that time period seemed to be heavy metal, like the Ruffians. It didn't seem to be that, but I see it listed sometimes under thrash monikers, and that's why I even brought that up. And I just know that both bands were kind of like predecessors to the thrash movement. It leads me to ask a question. Did you know the guys in Exodus and Mordred and stuff like that coming up through high school, kind of a thing? Were you guys all forming young bands around the same time?
Well, everybody was sort of like, you know, we were all forming bands at the age of like, you know, 16. I mean, you know, 16. So people were still in high school. So when you're still in high school.
Or like 9 if you think Death Angel.
Yeah. Everybody's still in high school, right? So like, there's like the Berkeley dudes, right? Which were kind of like, you know, like me, Laaz Rockit guys. And then there was like, you know, maybe like the Marin guys from like San Rafael, Marin County that were like the Vicious Rumors guys. And then, so everybody kind of started meeting by playing the clubs together.
Yeah. In the city?
Yeah, mostly in the city. So the East Bay guys, the Exodus, you know, Violence Forbidden or you know, those bands, you know, we'd go to San Francisco, and I remember when I was like in Laaz, we'd go to San Francisco and start playing these shows. Then we'd meet like the SF dudes, right? Like Anvil Chorus, right? Like, you know, predecessor, you know, band that was playing before. They were very sort of proggy, almost like a saga band. Wow. And Doug Piercy, are you familiar with Anvil Chorus, right?
Yeah.
But so everybody started kind of meeting each other, you know. But I was but like, you know, when I was in Laaz, I remember playing with Exodus. I mean, I was in high school. We played like a park in Richmond. And this was an Exodus as a 4-piece, right? It was Kirk on guitar, Kirk Hammett, and it was Jeff Andrews on bass. Tom Hunting played drums and Gary Holt on guitar. Tom Hunting was the singer.
Really?
And, yeah, he was the singer. It was a 4-piece. That was before they got Bailoff. And I already knew Bailoff because Aaron Jella, my business partner, guitar player from Laaz Rockit, grew up with Paul Bailoff in a small town in Kensington, right by Berkeley. And so we started going to parks and drinking beer. And Bailoff, man, he was just a character. I mean, he knew his metal too, man, you know. And we had another close friend, that was friend I met through those guys, Aaron and Paul Bailoff, which was Mark Whitaker. And Mark Whitaker,
I know that name.
Yeah, managed Exodus at the beginning and worked with Metallica. And he worked on the first 2 Metallica albums. And he had the Metallica house. That was his house. He just ended up letting the guys, you know, live there. And
okay.
So Mark Whitaker was
El Cerrito.
El Cerrito.
Yeah.
El Cerrito kind of. So I grew up with those guys, kind of East Bay guys, you know, and then. Mark.
That's Carlson Boulevard, right?
Carlson Boulevard house. Yeah, there's a lot of good times there, man. A lot of good parties. But I remember.
And I wanted to. I don't want to forget about that. The Metallica Mansion story. Surely you've got 1 or 2 or 5.
Yeah. There's good times there.
Yeah.
But yeah. They all ended up in the kitchen drunk. But
on the floor under the table.
Most parties, there's 40 people in the kitchen, the size of like, you know, 10 people can fit in it, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why all the good parties end up in the kitchen.
Because that's where the fridge is.
Yeah, it's where the fridge is. It's the heart. It's the heart of the house.
Absolutely.
See, Dave fucking knows, man. His middle name is Budweiser.
I've been to a few
I'm
parties.
kidding. It's not yet.
But yeah, man, that was everybody kind of knew each other at an early age and started playing shows and together and just having a good time.
Super fun, man.
I wanted to go back real quick to Laaz Rockit, Jason's question about, were they or were they not considered part of the thrash scene? And I always sort of equated them much like an Armored Saint or a Lizzie Borden that was sort of more of a new wave of British heavy metal, sort of a power metal thing, but kind of also shared bills with a lot of bands that were thrash and therefore kind of got sort of lumped into the scene. But I always felt Laaz Rockit was a little more melodic than thrashy. And they reminds me a bit of, like I said, Armored Saint, Lizzie Borden, that type of thing, where it's still heavy metal, no doubt, but I'd stop short of calling it thrash myself, even though they shared bills with Metallica and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you kind of lump them in, whether they're thrash or not, I mean, I think that, yeah, maybe you're from the Bay Area. They're part of that movement, so it's borderline. So some people label it thrash. I mean, I just think it's called heavy metal. I mean, melodic metal. But yeah, I think those bands all have good singers. You know what I mean? You think about it. I mean, John Bush. I mean, what a fucking voice!
Yeah. Well, and Lizzie's fucking great too.
That guy was a great singer too, man. I mean, what a range that guy had. And then, but John Bush, just a God-given voice. He was just God gave him soul,
I've always thought that John was he's one of my idols, and I luckily sort of befriended him and was introduced to him by James.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is I've always thought that he was like this Steven Tyler meets Ronnie James Dio. Now, whether that's even close to correct, you think about what those singers can do vocally, and you go see John, and then there's no argument whether you think that he sounds like those guys had a baby or not. He's a bad motherfucker.
A little Paul Rogers in there too, which
I agree 100%. He's like
Paul Rogers, and I mean, Paul Rogers is kind of like, if you think, I mean, he might be my number one fave of all time.
Yeah, he's pretty
great
amazing.
singer. Yeah.
But yeah, man. I got a chance to, John Bush. Metallica had asked John Bush to join the band years ago. They were thinking, oh man, maybe we need to get a front man to go the next step.
I remember that.
And I think James was maybe, a little not totally comfortable with his voice. Maybe just wanted to concentrate on guitar or whatever. And then, John turned him down. Like, hey man, I got my own band, Armored Saint. And those guys got signed on early to Chrysalis. I mean, they got signed one of the earlier heavy metal bands. Keep grabbing my guitar pick or something here. I put it over here. I'm going to pick up a guitar, start jamming. This is like where I sit and play guitar all the time, right?
Yeah, but I feel like you kind of touched on something, just to nerd out on the Saint for a second. It is a fact that when you really think about it, I mean, that March of the Saint came out in summer 84, late 84, maybe?
Yeah.
So that means that their deal could have been inked by late 83.
I think the first album might have been 83. I want to say that they had an album there, 83, because their album came out before Metallica's Kill 'Em All. I want to say
they had an EP before an album.
The EP that was on Metal Blade. So March of the Saint was on Chrysalis, and I saw them tour. They were on the Ride the Lightning tour.
Yeah.
But real quick, to go back, so it'd always been like, well, wow, what would Metallica be with John Bush? I mean, it all worked out perfectly that he was was in the band. But when Metallica did those 30 anniversary shows at the Fillmore, I think they played, it was 3 nights or something.
Yeah.
They had all the heroes come up, everybody from, Rob Halford to John Bush, but John Bush sang Four Horsemen with them. So that night, you got a chance to hear what Metallica would have sounded like with John Bush, and he sang Four Horsemen, and it was pretty special.
Wow.
They had people like, like I said, Halford or why can't I think of Diamond Head singer now? Harris,
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah. And all these guys.
No, Sean Harris.
And Battler played with them. And King. The King came out and sang, and those guys it was amazing to hear all that sort of stuff. But it was kind of special with the John Bush thing, knowing the history of how that kind of happened. You know, it was neat.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they knew him from L.A. It was interesting for them to reach out just a couple of years later and go, well, man, what are we going to do? You know, because, you know, it would have changed. Things worked out, like you said.
Yeah.
Let's leave that alone. Yeah, I can't. That's a go down a black hole just trying to.
It would have changed the cosmos, man. It would have been.
Yeah, I don't want to mind bend. I don't want to mind bend on that any longer, but I recall that very, very well. And then Anthrax got him later. And I talked to John about that, and he was like, well, you know, it's like the second to be asked by one of the big four, I guess you could say now, you know, the second time, I'm not going to turn it down, and I have full support from the Saint guys.
Yeah.
The timing was right on that.
Yeah. Different circumstances. At that time, Armored Saint was, you know, more or less kind of inactive, and, you know, I understand why Bush turned down Metallica, because Armored Saint was basically an up and coming band that had a lot of potential, and he had every right to believe that we got every bit of a shot as Metallica. So why not stay where I am? These are my brothers. And I mean, didn't Bush go to high school with all those guys? So it's like,
they know each other. I think they're like,
yeah. And then so, you know,
brothers, those guys know each other. They're like the death angel of LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cousins or something like that.
Exactly.
I don't know if they were all. I think they were of the age and probably hung out, but they're Pasadena boys, Armored Saint.
Yeah.
And I think James was like Downing or somewhere.
Yeah, but you know, people look back in hindsight, of course, and say, "Oh my God, how did you turn down Metallica?" But you have to remember, Metallica was just a bar band, just like Armored Saint at that time. Right. So, and you know, he
Slayer
was
loyal too. So
yeah, and he was loyal to his brothers, and Armored Saint was a promising band on the scene. You know, and then you fast forward 30, 35 years later, and Anthrax is asking you to join. Well, by now, Anthrax is super established, and Armored Saint is kind of, you know, on hiatus. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Kind of a timing thing, too.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk.
I saw Bush with the Anthrax. We played that Bang Your Head Festival. Ruffians played Bang Your Head Festival in 2004, and they were on the same bill. And that was a real treat, man, to see him sing with them. And,
we saw that a few times, me and Jason. Yeah. Bush with Anthrax.
Yeah, those were some good years that he put in with them, and kept them very relevant.
Relevant. It's good work for sure.
Let's talk. You just mentioned Ruffians playing the German festivals. That is like this coveted thing for your. What? You want me to get my old band back together and come play some shows in Germany? Hey guys, guess what? My phone just rang, or I got an email, and so wants us to get the band back together, and blah, 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 blah. We better print some shirts and practice.
Right. And so that's how it went down, and it was pretty wild. And that so-and-so is a mutual friend of ours, Jürgen Chalmler.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So Jürgen was a journalist, and he had interviewed me back in the 80s in Ruffians for like German magazines. Mm-hmm. And so, and I remember being interviewed by him, like, oh man, this guy has some really interesting questions, different than than some of the other people. And so fast forward 2003, I think it was, maybe early 2002, 2003, he did an article like, where are they now? Sort of these cult bands like Ruffians, that had releases that were, semi-popular in Europe. And so so that kind of came out, and then fast a year or so later, we get the call. He gets in touch with me asking if we'll get the band together to play Bang Your Head Festival, play the warm-up show, and all that. So I was pretty blown away. So I called up the other guitar player, Chris Atchison, in Ruffians. I said, hey, Chris, man, I said, we'd always joke about this anyway on the phone. Hey, we're getting the band back together. So I think I called him up and I said, hey, dude, so check this out, man. Blah, blah, blah. We're getting the band back together. He's all, shut up, man. I got to go. I'll call you later. He hangs up on me, right? And so I called him up again, and I'm like, no, seriously, man, we're getting the band back together. He goes, dude, I'll call you later. So I had to wait. So it was pretty mind bending to be able to play a festival of that stature. And so we did it, man. I had to put your mindset back to where you're like, 17, 18 years old, get the right hand moving a little faster. And we practiced and we got as many original members as we could. And we went over there and played, man. We played a club show with Death Angel the night before the festival. And man, I couldn't believe it, dude. We played this club show. It was just insane. And people were singing all the lyrics to the first album. And we sold all this merch. And people were like, I can't believe you're here. And so it was just very heartwarming,
Yeah, sure.
And we played the festival the next day. And then that led to re-releases with unreleased tracks, Live from the Stone in '85 with Carl and all this sort of stuff like that. And we ended up doing a whole nother album, which came out in 2006. And then we got a few tours out of the deal. And it was really neat to be able to do that again and reconnect with the guys.
Yeah. Well, when Ruffians was around initially, what was your status on the local scene? Were you guys like headlining clubs, or were you kind of the opening band for bigger touring bands that were coming through? How big were you in your local area?
Both. We would headline the clubs when we'd play. We'd do a weekend gig and we'd play the Stones or whatever. So we'd headline clubs. We'd also support a lot of national acts that came through. I mean, like Loudness, Y&T, Alcatraz, Dawkins. I can't think of them all. But any bands that would be playing, Vandenberg or whatever, any band that was playing the tour circuit then.
Vandenberg was on the boat.
Yeah, wow, yeah, great guitar player. But yeah, we'd get those support slots, man, and do headline shows. We'd go down to LA and play sometimes too. We'd play places like the Waters Club down there. We'd play the Troubadour, Gazzari's and all those places too.
All right.
So just mostly up and down the West Coast. The band really never broke on a national level.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what we were doing.
Well, it was always the demos and recordings of you guys were just as sought after as Metallica demos, as anybody would think. It's interesting. I want to go back to. It doesn't surprise me that you guys got an invite to go play those festivals, because if you think back of all the early fanzines and the tape trading and the things like that, you guys were one of those bands. You guys were one of it. Don't sell yourself short ever, because you never know when the phone is going to ring or you get an email. It's a completely different world now. Doesn't surprise me. Keep It True, Bang Your Head festivals, those are like homecomings for heavy metal fans and the bands that they dreamed of seeing and never got to see because of, it's on the other side of the globe. It's like, here's San Francisco and here's Germany. You can't, it doesn't work because, some of us didn't sell enough records to be this, boom, kind of mega thing. So fans are incredibly powerful, and the ones who are fans who have the tenacity and maybe the pockets to put together a festival that's as long running as those festivals are, holy crap.
Keep It True was really special.
Amazing.
And it was just I just felt really humble to be invited to play those things. And I met some good friends and people I still stay in contact with, man. A few people, especially Jürgen, and a couple other guys that are really close and really big supporters of the band.
Yes.
Yeah, it's special.
Yeah.
How did you meet Billy Rowe, and tell us a little bit about your involvement in the Butlers?
Yeah, so Billy, San Francisco guy. He played in a band Jet Boy back in the day, and we're on the same bill at the Stone. It was Ruffians and Jet Boy played together, and we already kind of knew of each other, and yeah, we connected that night. I remember we shared the same backstage room, and we just him and I are talking about whatever, man, Aerosmith to, Motorhead to, so
some of the same conversations that I've had with you in different parts of whatever are the same conversations I've had with Billy Rowe.
Oh, yeah. So
at some point, it's like we're gonna have to like do that in get together somewhere and hang out and have tea in person.
A rock summit.
Yeah.
So me and Billy met, and then so it's two different bands sort of. They're glam, and the Ruffians is like heavy metal. So we're on the same bill, and glam or not, I mean, those guys are fucking hard rockers, man. I mean,
that's right.
And so I remember my sister Lori was managing the band Ruffians at that time, and I just remember, you fuckers, get out of here with all that hairspray, man. You're we can't breathe in here. The singer Carl's got to warm up, and Lori just giving him shit, just being Lori, like in a really lighthearted, fun way, and everybody's laughing. We just had a good time, but yeah, me and Billy would kind of cross paths, and then another one of my closest friends is Eric Clandon, who played drums in American Heartbreak. Him and Billy grew up together as kids. I mean, like grade school,
Yeah.
So there's connection there. And so, yeah, Billy, we'd always cross paths. We wouldn't see each other all the time. But then, and he was down in LA. I'd go down to LA, run into him at, Cat House or something like that. And then he moves back to San Francisco, and we're at he had always had a 4th of July barbecue. So him and I are there talking, and I had already set in with like American Heartbreak once or twice, jamming with them, on an Aerosmith song or something. And so we're all like, hey man, let's get a band together. Is him and I and Eric Clandon standing around. Like we start off, we'll play songs of all our favorite bands. And so, yeah, we said, okay, so we did it, and just to have fun with it, man. And all these people started coming to our shows. We're playing Alice Cooper. We're playing Thin Lizzy. We're playing UFO. It's like, it's like a kegger party music, right? But we're not playing the singles, right? We're playing the B-sides a little bit more something. We're doing this for us, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how the Butlers came up. And Michael Butler, who played bass in American Heartbreak, played bass, and Graham Shaw's the vocalist, great singer. So we just started doing that, and then all our friends would sit in, and we've had Chuck Billy from Testament sit in. We've had Phil Demmel from Machine Head sit in. Dave Root from Tesla sits in. Rob Cavasani from Death Angel. So all our friends will come sit in with us, and it's a really fun thing, man. I mean, we've been doing it for a while now. We thought it was just going to be a couple of years, but we have so much fun, and we don't have to practice too much. So
right,
just kind of keeps going
awesome.
on. Yeah.
It sounds awesome. Like a really cool, like not dare I say Hollywood vampires, but it sounds like a Bay Area hub. A round table of sorts, where you guys get together and it's like a bro hug that you all kind of need, and you don't know you need it until you hear that song, and you look around and there's all your brothers, there's all your friends and your family, your wives, your girlfriends, everybody who's from the scene. I love that kind of shit. I'm almost shedding a tear. It's important. That's important.
I love the fact that the focus is on the deep cuts, because I mean, if you're going to do Judas Priest, we've all heard "Living After Midnight" a million times. Let's hear "Grinder" or something like that, or even deeper than that. So I love the fact that you're focusing on some of the deeper cuts, because that speaks to the nerds in the band, but it also is welcome to the ears of the nerds that are in the audience. Exactly. I would love to see that band. That sounds like something I would enjoy on a Saturday night.
Yeah, we'll do like Wings, Maybe I'm Amazed. And then right after that, we're going to like Don't Believe a Word or something. Like, it's all beautiful. It all has to be 70s. I think the only 80s that we go to, and we stop at High and Dry. So we do like Lady Strange,
It's great stuff, man.
Well, that early stuff that was like the genesis of what those bands probably became, or whether they just stuck with that same tone or timbre of songwriting, is of no importance at all. But I think that what makes people happy is when they realize, oh my God, they played Dreamer Deceiver. Oh
Yeah.
my God, they played, like I've never heard that Def Leppard song. It's like, well, it's because you weren't alive when that song came out. It's not your fault,
Yeah.
whatever. And so
Yeah.
I think that even though there's that Genesis factor, there's also something that you're still turning people on to good shit. Yeah, this is when Aerosmith was good. This is called Seasons of Wither, so shit like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
That-
good. You're keeping something alive within yourselves as well as kind of bringing it in for a big hug. I think that's great.
It is for sure. And it's funny because me and Billy came into it, and we're primarily rhythm guitar players, Billy and I, come from a songwriting rhythm guitar player approach. And the rhythms were just like, fucking tight, and then but we're like, oh man, okay, who's gonna take the lead? Billy Camille, I don't want to take the lead, I don't want to take the lead. So we had to start learning like these, and it made us, better guitar players a little bit, learning some stuff. And when you're learning, oh, this is how Rick Nielsen thinks from Cheap Trick, and this is how it's kind of neat to do that,
Yeah,
So-
Rick Nielsen's not really a lead guitarist, and a
No.
lot of people forget that.
Yeah,
There's
he's
a lot of
songwriter and some mental stuff he comes up with, like what the fuck is that guy thinking? And he's just like he's like an idiot savant, man. He's a genius. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Cheap Trick that doesn't have the common guitar solo, right?
Yeah.
So, pretty cool.
Speaking of the Butlers, and you mentioned bass player Michael Butler, he was in Exodus for a bit, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
He recorded an album. I can't remember
It was the album with the Ralph Steadman artwork, the Hunter S. Thompson guy that did the artwork. Phil, what's the name of that album? Not Impact is Imminent, but it was Force of Habit.
Okay.
So Michael Butler plays on the Force of Habit Exodus album. That's when they got signed to Capitol. They did that album in England, and I think Chris Sangrides.
Sangrides, yeah.
Yeah, Sangrides. I can never pronounce that guy's name right. He produced that album, I think, I want to say. But yeah, that was a great time for Michael Butler to get in the band. So it was like Gary saw him play somewhere, or somehow he got the audition, and he came in, and it was like, rock and roll punk rock bass player with his, bass dragging to the ground, running all over the place in Exodus. And they're like, whoa, this guy's got something going on, man. Compared to Robbie McKillop was the other bass player. Robbie, a great bass player too, but he just stood there. And Robbie wanted to get out of music. He was kind of done with it. And then that's when Michael Butler got into Exodus, man, and did that album and toured the world with them. And I think they went on. I think that's when they opened up for. I think they did open up for Sabbath on the Dehumanizer tour with Dio. They supported that tour in the States, man.
Wow,
that's legend.
That's not bad.
That's not a bad feather in Michael's cap. I have a question about Michael. Was he in Jet Boy at any point?
When Jet Boy got back together, like all the bands are getting back together, and doing this sort of stuff. Jet Boy got back together. And Jet Boy got back together while the Butlers was happening. Okay. So he was there, and Billy already played with Michael in American Heartbreak. So he had him in Jet Boy for a while, and then they moved on and got somebody else.
It's been about 10, maybe 13 years ago. Shit, maybe longer. Broken Teeth did a gig with Jet Boy in Fort Worth, Dallas, and that's the last, until recently, that's the last time I had a in-person conversation with Billy, and Michael was there, and I didn't really officially meet him, but I was hanging out with Michael. I don't know if he remembers that, but
he's got a good memory, especially if you guys are talking rock. Yeah, and that sounds like it probably would have been 10-ish, 11 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, Jet Boy was doing a run. They were doing a run of shows, and they came through Texas, and I was fortunate to be on the bill. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Keith, man, so you sent me those records. I really dig them. It reminds me kind of like a, Motorheady Rose Tattoo. I mean, you wear your influences on your sleeve. Just good hard rock band.
Yeah.
So is that band still active?
We are only inactive until we're not. We kind of go with the seasons, but things have been really weird with the starting of the lockdown, and then some of us were well, my guitar player Jared, who's a producer of this show, Jared Tuten, he got like a rigging, like he's really smart, genius kind of a guy, hell of a guitar player, yada yada. We could talk about him for an hour, but he has a gig where he travels now, and the dude has a Grammy. The guy works with Charlie Sexton and Jimmy Vaughn and all these badass Texas people in blues scene and stuff, right? Billy Gibbons works with Billy Gibbons and shit like that. So, holy Christ, right? So, but he had to get like a different, because of the lockdown and everything. Music took a plunge, was sitting around waiting, so. So that slowed everything down for a lot of us, actually. And we wrote some skeletons during this strange time. We have some skeletons of Broken Teeth songs that me and Jared still threaten each other. We got to get in a room and flush some of these out and force ourselves to make a new Teeth record. So,
2 guitar players?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right.
They played
when I heard that stuff, man, I was like, I could play a fucking guitar in this band.
Oh yeah, we just did. I know.
But if someone can't make it, call me, Jason. I'll be there.
They did play. They played last December with Junkyard, but that was the first time in like 2 years or something.
A couple months ago, we did 2 shows with Junkyard down here, and it was fucking awesome.
It was awesome.
Nice matchup.
Yeah.
Good times.
So, Craig, you've also spent some time with Davy Vain. Tell us a little bit about that time period, because I think it was in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. So it's kind of after the No Respect era and the stuff that was on MTV and that sort of thing. So take us back to your time in Vain and tell us what you recorded, if anything, and what you did as far as touring, and just kind of spell out that time period for us.
Yeah, well, I always thought Davy Vain was one of the great underrated frontmen. I thought he was a great frontman. I don't know that he had the greatest voice, but a lot of great frontmen don't have a great voice. But he's like one of those guys.
Dave, I'm sitting right here, dude. Be cool.
I'm not saying Davy has a bad voice. I'm just saying that I think his strength is his stage presence
and songwriting.
Yeah.
Like he's primary songwriter. And Davy has a very unique voice. When you hear Davy Vain, it's Davy Vain singing. And he's got a unique voice, good range, and he's got his own style, and definitely a great frontman. And Vain, another considered glam band, but I mean hard rock band. I mean, they're heavy, man. Got some, sense of, as far as that sort of genre goes.
His voice reminds me a little bit of Andy Wood, Mother Love Bone.
He's got a unique tone for sure. He's got his own thing. But yeah, I wasn't doing too much. I think I was coming out of like around that time. What was I doing? I had a band called Trouble Horse. It was like a rock band that was playing around. We were playing the circuit, just Bay Area stuff. And I was looking to kind of do something else. At that point, I wanted to play in like 2 or 3 bands or whatever, like you do. How many bands you in now? 10?
He just started another one while we were doing this podcast.
I stopped counting about 30 years ago.
Well, so I put an ad out, and I go, I've never done this. I was always putting ads out looking for somebody or singer or something like that, whether it be for Ruffians or whatever. And I said, hey, man, guitar player just wants to play these influences, and so looking for people to jam with, do something with, right? And I said, I'm just going to do that and just see how it happens. And so this guy calls me up, and we're talking on the phone, and we're just kind of connecting, and it took like about 10 minutes in the conversation, and his voice just kind of sounded, or his delivery. I mean, I'd seen Davey in a while. And I'd known him from the Stone days, kind of hanging out. Because, the heavy metal guys would go to the glam shows because that's where the chicks were. And everybody was a melting pot of hanging out at other people's shows, whether it was, the Mentors or the Vain or Vicious.
Talk about a mixer.
Yeah, it was everybody mixed up here.
Mentors and Vain on tour now.
Yeah. I already knew those guys. I had beers with them, and so we started talking like, hey man, and you sound familiar. I don't know who said it first, me or Davey, and then Davey goes, oh, I think he didn't want to let it on. Yeah, he goes, oh man, well this is Davey Vain playing. Vain. I go, oh, this is Craig, man, from Ruffians. And he's all, no way, man. And so, 10 minutes in the conversation. So he goes, well, dude, come over here and let's jam. I'm doing like a solo thing. And I said, well, right on. So he was doing a solo thing and we started playing and it just worked out, man. It was him and Ashley Mitchell, the bass player from Vain, and a drummer named Louie, and Davey was singing and he was playing guitar too. And so, so we just started jamming. It was so easy just to jam. And so Davey was recording his album, solo album, Out of Nowhere, In From Out of Nowhere.
That's it.
Yeah. And so I play a lot on that album, and rhythm stuff, lead work. And then we started playing out, and we were going down, playing around here, and go to LA, played Dragonfly with Tammy from Fast Pussycat had a band. I can't remember what the name of his band was then.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're playing around and just having fun. And then
wasn't it called the Newly Deads?
Something, man. This was like early 2000s.
Maybe.
Yeah, he had
they're like doing a goth thing or something.
Yeah, that's it. The Newly Deads. Yeah.
And so we started playing shows and just having fun. And then I was still kind of playing with that band Trouble Horse, and I had Ruffians were starting to get going right around the time because this is 2003, 2004 or something. And so yeah, at that point I was in 3 bands, and then Davey was like, well, hey man, let's start getting. He got another guitar player, Sean Rory. I can't think of his last name. I don't see these guys all the time. Sean Rory, I think is his last name. He played in Road Crew with Davey and Steve Adler. So Sean comes in the band and we became a 5-piece. We start playing more Vain songs. And then we start going to LA, playing around, doing stuff like that. And then Sean leaves, and then we get Jamie Scott to come in at the time, who's the Vain guitar player. And then Davey labeled the band Vain. And so we started playing around. And then Ruffians was kind of happening, going to go to Europe and do stuff. And I just had too much going on. So I had left that. And I knew it worked out because they would have kicked me out later, because right around the corner was bands reunited. And Vain got Danny, they got Tommy, they got the original lineup back, and they started playing and doing the thing like that. So it all worked out. And
sense.
Tommy Ricard, the drummer for Vain, he plays drums in the Butlers.
Oh,
yeah, we have 2 drummers, him and Andy Gallion from Death Angel. So total Bay Area thing, the camaraderie of everybody playing together,
Yeah, I saw Vain. It must have been the No Respect tour, and I saw him in a club with Spread Eagle, and I'd seen them on MTV, of course, and because they had the videos for Who's Watching You and Beat the Bullet. And I always thought that was one of those bands that had all the ingredients to make it, which is why I'm curious to know your history with Davey, because that's one of the many bands that I thought had what it took to kind of rise to the next level, But, the business is cruel, as everyone here in this room knows. But anyway, I always had respect for Davey and the band. I remember Ashley, and I thought they put on a great show, and they had a great image, and they had a lot of energy, and they just kind of they were right up my alley, And to this day, I still listen to the No Respect record, and I know a lot of my friends hold that record in high regard too.
Classic.
I think it's cool that you are kind of I don't know if Renaissance man is the right word. And I wouldn't call you a whore, but I like it.
But it's somewhere in between.
But you know where I'm going with this. I like it that you are just a rock and roll guy like we are, and that you have this sort of like, I don't know if it's aura or natural magnetism to you need a guitar player, I can be there for you, right? As well as you have kind of your own way, and you seem to just hanging with you. You seem to kind of have your own way anyway, but you can splinter up. Hey, I'll be right back. I swear, I'll be right back, and you can go do a couple of things and at least help somebody out, and even fucking maybe even inspire them to roll and get their snowball happening. And then you're like, you guys are fine, I'm gonna go back and do my thing, I'll see you next time. And it seems to, just from hanging with you, it seems to be this thing when you go from sorry, not in order, Ruffians, Laaz Rockit, whatever, right? You have all this stuff that you that's like these things, kind of like your heroes framed on the back. You have these feathers in your hat, these things that you love, and because you love rock and roll, just like we're super nerds for it. It doesn't surprise me that you've just been able to be this happy guy. You're happily married. You've been married a long time too, haven't you?
Yeah. Like 25 plus years. So
amazing.
Says
a lot, man. Says a lot about how real you are. So it's impressive, dude.
Well, cool. I think we're kind of cut from the same cloth, Jason. I mean, dude. I mean, we love rock and roll, we love heavy metal, and so when someone like hey, I want to play with Davy Vain. Where I was in Ruffians, the heavy metal band from the Bay Area, but we're going to go play with the glam guy. Hey, man, this guy's talented guy, man. I want to play and see where this what happens with this, and just to do different things. Heavy metal, rock and roll. Played in 2-Bit Thief with Andy Anderson.
I was pen pals with Andy for many years. I have like old flyers with handwritten letters from him from years ago, man.
We did.
How's he doing? What is Andy doing right now? What is Andy doing?
He's happily married. He's got a daughter. Awesome. He just he's done a lot, man. He's done a lot of albums with Attitude. 2-Bit Thief. He's written a couple books.
Yeah.
Whatever Andy decides to do, he does, and he's done a lot. And I think he's just he's family man, concentrating on his daughter, and he's kind of laying low.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, please tell him that I said hi, because we were just pen pals. I think he was at that Watchtower show we played at the MAB or the On Broadway back in '86. But it was the only time I feel like I've ever met him face to face. But pen pal, that's one of those weird things. It's kind of like I want to talk about the story about people should probably take their kids out of the room. I was on tour. Well, it has drugs involved. I was on tour with Priest and Cooper, the Operation Rock and Roll tour thing. And what's the name of the venue? Shoreline
Amphitheater.
Shoreline. And I just gonna be total fanboy here for a second. It was awesome that you were there, because I knew who you were, of course. But dude, it's like I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with Kirk Hammett and Gary Holt and just Testament dudes, and I was just like going, holy shit! This is like the candy store of thrash metal in the Bay Area, and I'm about to do a gig, and these guys, just knowing that these guys are in the house, freaked me out. And,
we're all just hanging out next to each other, drinking. Hey, we all know each other since we're kids, and then, all right, man, we're gonna see Dangerous Toys.
Crazy. Not in my wildest. I couldn't have written that story. I could not have written it, and I didn't know who was gonna be there. Hell, I may have forgotten for a second I was near the Bay. I knew I was in California. I knew I was in Northern California, but how far is the city from Shoreline, from from that venue?
That place is like down on the peninsula, so it's like in Silicon Valley, so to speak. What they call it now. Probably about like it's like 30 minutes south of San Francisco.
Oh, that's not terrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
not terrible. But it's so funny. I was reflecting on like kind of how we met, right? And I remember I was at the Cat Club.
Okay.
In the late 80s. I was
Cat House in LA. Cat House
in LA, late 80s. I was with my buddy Kent, who's like total underground metal fan. Who knows all the metal.
Got to have him on the show.
We're sitting there at the bar. You're standing there, and then he's like, "Hey, man, that's the singer from Watchtower." Like, how do you know stuff back then? There's no internet. There's no computer, man.
Hold on, I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
Nerd alert. Nerd alert. Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and then he goes, "Hey, Jason," you look over, and underneath his sweater, he pulls up his shirt. He's got a Watchtower shirt, like fucking like the first ones that were ever made or something, right? And you're like, whoa, no way, dude, that's like OG fucking Watchtower shirt.
Mind blown. I'm thousands of miles away from home in a total fish out of water because I was so green. I was still green as far as like the whole hard rock scene because you know where I come from. It's that underground thrash thing. And here I am in a hard rock band literally overnight, about to make a record, and I'm in LA, and then I'm seeing dudes wearing Watchtower shirts.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It was another universe, man. It fucked me up.
And you just been to LA, and then so we all connected, man. We started talking metal kind of. And I remember like, hey man, what you did, like, well, let's stay in touch or something. And, grab the book of matches, ask the bartender for a pen, write down your phone number, and you got to hope, don't want to lose this matchbook. That guy's cool. We need to, and somehow, I don't know, dude, how it happened. Phone, this and that.
Yep.
Talk once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Sent you got your address, sent you a Thin Lizzy shirt, like back in the late 80s or something. I'd made like 10 Thin Lizzy shirts when you couldn't even find a Thin Lizzy shirt, right?
Yeah, I think it was
pass them out to your friends, and then you come through on that tour with Dangerous Toys, the Alice Cooper tour.
Correct.
I don't know how we got in touch with each other, bro. Did you have the same phone number?
You were just there, and you had a joint.
I think I know, but I talked to you beforehand or something. I don't know. Because I think you got me in. And we're on the bus, hanging out on your bus, and you're telling me you knew somebody had just bought or got Brian Robinson's Black Les Paul with the Anvil case, or story like that. And it was like, I don't know what it was.
A story I don't even remember now, but you're probably not wrong. So you would probably remember
something like that.
Yeah.
And so, and then so I just feel like we don't see each other much, but then I ran into you in Austin at Stubbs and Motorhead, and played with National Pussy.
Yes.
And like, dude, and we just happened to run into each other. But so the cosmos line up. But yeah, man, it's like I said, we got geography against us. I know we'd be hanging out a lot more.
Yeah. Jason tells me that is it fair to say you're pretty obsessed with Thin Lizzy and UFO?
Yeah, he's got it right. Those are
okay.
I would put those two bands as my top two favorite bands.
That's what I thought. I knew that about
Thin Lizzy. I mean, even when I heard Jailbreak on the radio, on AM radio when I was a kid, that's the first Thin Lizzy I heard. I'm just like, the word jailbreak, and it's going to happen. There's a jailbreak tonight, man. I was just like, whoa. I mean, I was probably like, 14 years old, and then you go get the boys are back in town, and you do the slow burn, learning more about them, and twin guitars, harmonies. I mean, stuff just grabbed me, man. I couldn't believe the sound and Phil's voice. It was just so heartwarming. And like all the great bands, you have heavy, you have slow songs, man. Those are all the bands that we like. And that was really like the band. Ruffians adapted a lot of harmony guitars, in the tunes, and UFO. I mean, the drummer from Ruffians, Luke Bowman, he had an older brother. He turned us on to Obsession right when it came out, and took us down to see UFO in 1978 down at the Stanford campus on their basketball gym. And it was a band called Sea Level opened up, UFO, and then Atlanta Rhythm Section. and we saw
Wow.
a UFO, and there was this guy that was like with a flying bee in between his legs, a white bee with his head down, and it was like he came down from the gods or something, and I just seeing Michael Schenker and UFO, and I was totally hip to that Obsession album. Ever since then, man, I followed them every step of the way, and that was the one time I saw them with Michael. Other than them getting together later on, but yeah, UFO. I mean, like, how do you categorize them? Are they rock? They're hard. They're hard rock, right? I mean, they're not. But sometimes they get lumped in with heavy metal. But yeah, man, I love those bands. Of course, Zeppelin is like one of my all-time faves. And
what's your favorite Thin Lizzy deep cut?
Dude, I mean, that's such a trick question.
Can't be done.
You could say for heavy stuff, you could say Opium Trail, or you could say like Fool's Gold, man, off Johnny and the Fox. I mean, that's a great song.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I've always liked Borderline. I thought that was a great song.
Off Johnny and the Fox. That's
Johnny and the Fox is probably my favorite album by them. Of course, it probably changes every day, but that is one solid record. I know Jailbreak gets all the attention, and rightfully so. It's a great record, but Johnny the Fox, man, that's a magical album.
Yeah, it came out right after Jailbreak. Those two albums came out the same year, 76.
Yeah.
And if I could turn my computer around, you'd see my signed Jim Fitzpatrick litho of Johnny Fox album right above me.
Oh,
nice.
If I picked up the computer, I'm sure I'd lose connection.
Well, you can snap a photo of it and you can email it to us, and we can put it on our intro.
I dig it.
We do in post. We do an intro for you where you leave the room and me and Dave talk shit about you, and we show a photo.
But you can't talk shit about me because I threw out some pretty good Lizzy tracks there and facts.
Yeah, you did.
True.
Yeah,
True.
you did.
All right, same question.
Shit is not literal. So
same question, but with UFO. Favorite UFO deep cut?
Oh man, I would have to say. I mean, they changed. Like they change weekly, man. I mean, I was getting into Reasons Love off No Heavy Petting. I mean, the solo stuff in that. I mean, that's just one of my favorite deep tracks. Martian Landscape off that album's insane. But Born to Lose off Obsession, like a slow song like that, is just like insane. But Pack It Up and Go, man, that's like, all that riffage he puts in between. That's
this is the mark of a great band. When you can't pinpoint. You ask a question like that and it's impossible to answer. That's the mark of a great band. And it's not. And both of those bands, as you said, Craig, they're great at the heavy stuff. They're great at the middle of the road hard rock stuff, and then they'll just turn around and break your heart with the slow stuff. And they cover it all. One of my favorite deep tracks by UFO is off the Mechanics record. I love that ballad, Terry. Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a first for me to ever hear anyone go that I love Terry.
I've mentioned that on the show before because one of our listeners commented and said, "I can't believe someone else loves that song because I love it." That woman Eve, I think her last name is Allen, and she's the one that wrote the little essay about the podcast.
Oh, right, man.
But she loves UFO and loves that song in particular, and couldn't believe that somebody else even uttered those words. But
that's pretty deep track. And Paul Chapman, man, I mean, what a fucking guitar player. And it was hard for a lot of people, to accept Chapman, but he came in and I mean, God, he delivered, And he played with UFO, Dave, Paul Chapman and Michael together, around the Obsession time.
That's right.
And then Paul just realized, hey, this is a one guitar player band, and moved on. So Paul was in the fold with UFO for years, and we should just do a UFO podcast, man. Sometime.
I'm surprised someone hadn't done it yet. You know what? That's
we did one with Zetro, actually. Me and Zetro from Exodus.
I saw you on his podcast. What's it? Zetro's Vault.
Yeah, we did it. We do an artist spotlight. We broke down all the UFO albums.
But you did a Judas Priest one too, and that's the one that I saw.
Yeah, and we just did a Maiden one that's going to air sometime soon. So I have fun. We've known each other for years, man. So
yeah, tell us about Steve. Tell us about that guy, man. How is that guy?
He's good, man. He's he's Exodus has a new album coming out, and
it's already out.
Oh yeah, it just came out. And he's totally stoked. He thinks he sounds. He says one of the best albums that he ever did with Exodus. And
I've heard a couple songs, and my head split open, and I had to staple it back together.
Dude, we went up to Gary right when things started lightening up in May, last May, last year. We went up to Gary Holt's house. He had a birthday party, so we all went up, man, to a new house up north. It's great. Awesome. And we sat in the living room, and he played us the whole fucking album. And the opening track, I forget the name of it, man, but it's like, I don't know, dude. It's like 8 minutes long or something like that. And it has all these different sort of like, it has some different time signatures, a key change that sneaks into the key change. And I just looked at the guy and go, that's just fucking insane. He goes, yeah. He goes, you got to get through that first song if you want the rest of the album. So you got to get through like 8 or 9 minutes of this first track, and then you can have the album.
Yes. My son got that record for Christmas, and it's amazing. You know?
What's the album title? I want to
Persona Non Grata.
Thank you.
It's
cool title, man.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's already made the top of a lot of music critics best albums of the year or must have albums or whatever you want to call it. It's gotten a lot of critical praise.
I think the Testament record that came out like top of the lockdown, top of the pandemic, I can't remember the title. That one, as well as this Exodus record, are like Bay Area thrash god worthy of trophies and crowns. Both of those fucking records are, they came out.
Both, like you used the word relevant, man. Both those two bands are putting out stuff right now, and it's as good as anything that they ever put out, man.
Or topping it.
Yeah, topping it. Titans of Creation, I think, is the best one. And Gary's songwriting, he doesn't stop, dude. I mean, he just gets better all the time. And
God damn,
I can't say enough good things about both those bands. And it's just, all those guys in both those bands they're my bros, man. I'm just so happy for them,
Yeah.
Let's talk about Murder in the Front Row. So I just happen to have mine right here.
He sleeps with it under his pillow.
Yep. So, it's just pulled it out of my back pocket. We had Harry O on the show, and we got to see and hear the ultimate Harry O.
He was awesome.
It was incredible just to hang out with that guy for a couple hours. And I know we could have gone like another 3 or 4 hours with the guy, because as I don't have to tell you, the guy is just insane for rock and roll, and he's Front Row Joe. He's that guy. He's the camera in the band's face. As you know, and I think that it's obviously a result between him and his cohorts that this book and the movie ever happened. But you are fairly prominent within the movie, and you make appearances. What was it like? And tell us about, them asking you the questions they asked. I don't have anything specific. What do you think of this? You have to be just super proud to just be, this is your backyard, dude.
Yeah. I think that, those guys were there. Brian and Harold were there. They had cameras. They weren't there as photographers. No. Like, we're taking killer photos of these bands live. They were there to capture, pull out a camera, dude. We're at a Kager or the bands are playing or we're backstage. They were there, man. And thank God that they had the cameras, in their hand. And I've known Harold for years, man. Well over 35 years. And
Holy moly.
I didn't know Brian that well because Harold went to all the shows.
Yeah.
you know. And I think Brian was very more particular with the shows that he went to. It's very thrash, very metal. Huge Exodus fan, huge Metallica fan,
Yes.
you know, and like the other thrash bands as well. But
I think Harry gave Brian that sort of like tag. He said Brian was into this and this and this, but I'm just like crazy Harry.
yeah, dude, yeah. Harold O loves all genres. I don't care what it is, man. He's just, I mean, he loves, all the classic shit that we do.
Well, we talked 30 minutes about Rush and Primus and Les Claypool and all that shit. So
yeah, but so I think those guys put the book out, and then Adam, the guy who produced it, he saw a story in it, so they wanted to put out the movie,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just kind of turned into its own thing. It just captures a sort of time and space in the Bay Area, I guess, from like the maybe 1982 to 85 kind of thing. I think they kind of stopped right around when Cliff passed away. So but yeah, it definitely captures that. I mean, and it captures all the thrash bands, I think, and there's a couple photos of me in there just kind of raging with the guys, and a couple of fun stuff. There's that classic centerfold photo with Andy Anderson upside down with Cliff and me, and yeah, there's a few other there's just people hanging out. That was like standing outside of Ruthie's Inn at the end of a show. God knows who played, but that was just hanging out outside, like, okay, where are we going to go now? Where's the party, right? The after party. And that's what it was like, man. Everybody's hanging out on the street, getting wild and having a good time.
How well did you know Cliff?
Out of all those guys, I didn't really know Cliff that well. My wife, she knew him better. But interesting enough, him being from, here, I saw him play with Trauma, and
yeah, not many people get to say that.
Yeah. So I remember seeing Trauma, like, this guy in a cowboy shirt with smiley faces, bell bottoms on, just like this with a Rickenbacker. Like, who's that guy, man? Like playing the solo track, Anesthesia in Trauma. They played that,
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that, going, fuck, man, this guy's insane. And so, but yeah, we'd hang out a few times, small talk, stuff like that. Didn't really know him that well. Of course, me and Kirk are friends, and I knew him from Exodus and all that, and him going into Metallica, and yeah, know him more, and hung out with James and Lars more than Cliff. I think Cliff was a little bit more. Yeah, he was. I don't know, just not a little bit more of an introvert than extrovert. Out of all those guys.
Gotcha. So you're friends with Kirk and James and Lars well before they're this international juggernaut, and I assume you're still friends with them to this day.
We don't talk.
Well, okay. That's what I'm.
Those guys that we go to one of their shows, or get invited to one of the shows or something like that. Yeah, we talk, and they're gracious and sweet, super nice guys, man.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I'm sure you don't speak to them on a weekly basis or anything anymore, but I'm trying to get a sense of what is it like for you to watch these friends of yours just explode into this. I mean, we might never see another metal band at that level again in our lifetime, and it's just this juggernaut, this international phenomenon, and it's got to be so weird to know. I mean, that'd be like me, being friends with Jason if one of his bands became the next Iron Maiden or Metallica or something like that. I'm talking beyond like a Judas Priest. I'm talking above that, That's just like it's unimaginable. So what is it like?
I think you put it in the right. You say, like, well, if Jason, one of your best bros band became the biggest thing since sliced bread or whatever, it would still be your friend Jason, right? I mean,
Yeah, of course.
So it'd be hard for you to put it into, sort of context how big they are, right? You'd have to ask somebody else, like, are they really that big? Are they really the biggest fan in the world?
Okay.
So I look at it like, you see them and you're always rooting for the home team and you're like proud of them. You're listening to their tunes. I mean, you're listening to stuff that as it's coming out, man, and like going, wow, dude, Ride the Lightning. These guys are getting better, man. Like Master of Puppets, like, whoa, these guys are like, they're really like, something's going on. They're collaborating more and you can hear it. And so you're listening to it and this is what they do. And you see them just becoming better musicians first and foremost, I think is where it strikes a chord with you. You're listening to musicianship, but you're also seeing them like playing these shows. Oh, dude, they got the opening spot for the Ozzy gig, like killer, and so on and so on. They keep getting bigger, and but at the same time, you get face to face with them. You're just kind of, hey, what's up, man? You're like, I mean.
That's well said.
You're still kind of at the Kager party in some ways, but yeah, like when they got back together and those guys did what got back together? They did not they ever been broke up. They did those 30 anniversary shows and all that, and everybody kind of came and hung out, and then they did Record Store Day, and after Record Store Day, we all went back to the Metallica house on Carlson, and they rented out the house there, and we're there, and we're just kind of like hanging out at the house again, kind of,
That's awesome.
And so it's pretty neat. But I mean, they're like the.
There's photos floating around of that day of like, the old gang hanging out by where the garage used to be, where they wrote all the kick-ass shit, and like super old school, and everyone still looks pretty good. They're not 17 anymore. They're 40, 50,
yeah, exactly.
55,
Yeah.
We're still alive.
Yeah.
Can still walk. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's what I was trying to ask. You did a better job of answering it than I did of asking it. And what I was trying to get at, because you have a very unique perspective on that rise to the level they are. The rest of the world,
and Harry did too. Respect to Harry by way of the same sort of
right. That's
Harry,
kind of
what do you think of this? It's like, oh man, it's fucking mind blowing. But yeah,
right.
when they see
the rest of us know who they are.
It's a high five now, but that's cool.
The rest of us know who they are, obviously as outsiders. But you kind of have this unique perspective in the sense that you saw the growth from the ground level up. A lot of the world didn't even catch up to them until Master of Puppets,
or later even,
or later, yeah. And, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, so we were lucky enough to have a local DJ who was playing Kill 'Em All. So I feel like I kind of got in on the early level, but I didn't get in on the level that you got in on. And that's kind of what I'm saying is, what is it like from your perspective as someone who knew them in the clubs, knew them as friends, and then just watched this, this rocket ride go to heights that, we'll probably never see again as far as a metal band.
Yeah.
I mean,
just always rooting for the home team and just super proud of them and just following along, along the way, their whole career. And we'll just, and you can't escape Metallica now, man. I mean, It doesn't matter whether you see they sold their font, whatever. You see their font somewhere on something else, or you're on TV, or you turn around and it's just like me and my wife like each other. Who is this band Metallica, and why do they keep following me, man? They'll never go away.
Metallica is stalking Craig.
Yeah. Stalking the world, as it should be, because they're just fucking great, man. And I just can't, they did the thing I was trying to get at was like, they did the record store thing, and we went back to the house and they invited certain people. They always have a certain amount of people that they have for the fan club. Maybe it'd be a lotto for the fan club, lottery to get into something that special. But they always do these things for their fans, and they're humanitarians, man.
I call it the fifth member program. I think that it's similar to that. You have fifth membership. Yeah,
I love where you're going, Craig.
Special stuff, man, and and they get back, and they have All Within My Hands as foundation, and they play shows, and there may be a hunger bank, and they're playing in some city somewhere in America, and they give a lot of money to the hunger bank program. They do stuff for like the county of Marin, where they're from, and they're just giving back to the community, man, and it's just great. And I saw them; they played the Independent. It's like 400, 500 seat club in the city.
Nice.
That's last October, right before they were getting ramped up to go play some festivals and stuff. I think it was maybe October. And so I went and saw that. And they did that. And they did it at the Metro in Chicago too. They did 2 shows.
Oh, cool.
They're all fired up. Kirk was just so excited now. All because they hadn't played since the pandemic. And then they come back the streets of San Francisco in a club like the old days, half stacked, set up, 4 guys in a row, in your face, playing. And it was like what you remember seeing, man. Like it was pretty intense. It was really
awesome.
I saw some pictures from the Metro show, and it was pretty much how you described it. And I believe that the sort of like Metallica festival was called something like San Francisco Takeover or City Takeover.
Yeah. That was something that they did. They did that in December. Where they played 2 nights at the Chase Center.
Correct.
Where the Warriors play, and so they did 2 nights there, and it was a Salesforce thing. And I think Kirk and the guy who owns Salesforce, he's some 10-time billionaire or whatever. They put that on. Salesforce does. So I think that's how the Metallica connection was there. I don't know, but I want to say that there's ties and they're friends. So Salesforce really put together with the Metallica organization. I think they collaborated on like a Metallica takeover, and it was everything from All Within My Hands Foundation cleaning up trash at the ocean to them playing the festival, and Russ Halfin came out for it and did a book. I mean, it was all things Metallica in the Bay Area. As it should be.
I'm on their email list, so I was like basically clicking clickbait and reading all about what was about to go in, and there was basically a menu of shit to do that was like over a period of like 5 days, and it was all like and this, Lars's kid played and James's kid played, and they, their bands performed. And there was like this list as long as my arm of restaurants you could go to that were sponsored by this thing. And, I'm glad that they're giving some of their money away, because I hear when you're a billionaire, you can't spend, you have to give it away because you can't spend it all. In this lifetime, you cannot spend it all.
Well, they're doing good things with it, man.
Fantastic. Yes, they are. And I love it.
The street cred. The street cred is still there. Playing like, the record store in Berkeley, going to the Independent and playing the small club and doing all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's people out there that say, whatever, bands get too big and they have something to say. But man, those guys, that you can't deny their street credibility and what they're still doing out there.
Yeah. They're definitely still doing things that they don't have to do, and I think that's because deep inside they've never really lost touch of their roots. They're still aware of where they came from, and it's rare that somebody gets to that level and will still go play a record store or whatever, play a club or whatever. And they're the biggest band in the universe, and they're doing stuff like that, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well said, Dave, for sure.
Well, and I like that you brought up the fact that they give so much to the food bank, because every time they tour, I've seen it here in Texas. Whenever they come through, there is, if you go online to purchase a ticket, they let you know that a portion of that proceeds from the ticket is going to feed the homeless, or is going to the local food bank or whatever. And a band of that magnitude brings in a lot of money for a cause like that. And I just can't say enough great things about them for doing something like that. It's kind of like what you said. How much money can you have? And if I've got more than I can, ever spend in a lifetime, my grandkids can't even spend this much money. Do something with it that's going to help some people out. And I give them props for that.
Well, they're on top of it as far as that goes. I was going to say, I was going to kind of bring this down back to Craig, and I think that it's important for our listeners to know that getting some insight from someone who was there, ground zero, seeing these kids come up from LA, the changes that happen. Everybody knows the story about how they see trauma. James and Lars see trauma. Obviously, they didn't invite Ron to the party. They go see trauma. They see Cliff. They go, well, the only way I'm going to play in your band. Oh, and I heard Ray Burton saying, yeah, Cliff was in his room talking to this kid from LA for like every night for a month. And then the next thing you know, these kids from LA moved to the Bay Area and Cliff's their new bass player, kind of a thing. And you were there when they arrived.
And you heard all this on the street level. Well, the guys are coming up because, you hear Cliff gave them ultimatum, man. Like, that's how things got. People knew about things. People talked about stuff, and and things would get embellished, of course, as it would go like the next person. Yeah. But I think they would have came up here anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Because when they came up, I think that this is our people.
Yeah.
So I just think that Cliff's ultimatum just kind of gave them a push to do it sooner than they probably would have done already.
The scene in San Francisco at the time was much more Metallica oriented than the LA
open
scene.
To what they wanted to do.
Exactly.
Metallica, and Bay Area fans, man, they're hardcore. I mean, they were just San Francisco fans. I remember at the old Waldorf, all the bands would come through, and Steeler came through from LA, Ron Keel's band, and Yngwie was playing with them because Mike Varney would hook up guitar players with certain bands, and Mike Varney hooked up Yngwie with Steeler, and they did that first album. Steeler played the old Waldorf, and this was around 82 or something, or right around the times we were all playing the clubs too. And dude, all the heavy metal kids showed up, man. Yngwie's coming. And dude, they were sitting there, and when Yngwie wasn't doing a guitar solo, they literally, I was there. People had their backs to the crowd. They had their backs. They would look at Yngwie do a solo, and they'd be looking at the stage. Yngwie. And then Yngwie wouldn't do a solo, and they'd like turn their backs. And Ron Keel's like going, what the fuck are these kids doing, man? Yeah. And they were making a statement like, we're not really about your music and this look, but we're here for this guy. And I remember after that show, man, it was at the old Waldorf, and Mike Varney and Ron Keel were kind of talking in the corner. And you could see Ron Keel just kind of looking at Varney like, what the fuck, man? Like, we got to get this guy. I don't good or not. He's got to get out of this band, man. This is embarrassing for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. That shit's real, man.
San Francisco, man. Hey, heavy.
It could eat you up. Yeah, coveted fanzine, Metal Mania, which was almost called Metallica. I'm sure some people know that story. Ron Quintana. Metal Mania, that was a coveted magazine. I had to have copies of that magazine, and it wasn't real. I'm in the middle of Texas. How am I going to get this magazine? Lick a stamp, send a $1 bill. Hey, send me some. What? I don't remember how I ended up with them, but
that's probably how it was.
Yeah, and it was you lick stamps.
$1.50, put $1.50 in there.
There's a slit in the bottom where the quarters fell out. Yeah, there's a slit in the bottom of it where that
Ron only got $1. The United States Postal Service got the 50 cents.
That's right. What's this? What are all these quarters doing in the bottom of my truck? The postman. Anyway, I remember seeing pictures of Yngwie from that show that you're talking about.
Yeah.
In Metal Mania that surely were taken by Ron or Harry or Brian or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All of that. I could talk about this for days, and you guys know that I could because I am such a fanboy of anything Bay Area. I could talk about Journey or Santana too. So, the city is electric. The handful of times I've been there, Watchtower. I went back a couple years later with the Toys. Every time, it's a great, great city. I'm sure there's bum camps everywhere now, and it's terrible in a lot of spots. But something is electric going on there. There's something in the water. You're definitely something in the bay is causing everyone to become an artist and be creative and adapt or die. And I think that a lot of magical things have happened in that city, and it's freaking awesome to talk to people like you and Harry who were there at the beginnings of these things, that these two guys right here all the way down here in Texas were just like, oh my God, this is incredible. This stuff, that, but whether it be a band or just an artist or a writer or a movie or, Dirty Harry movies, whatever, it's fucking cool, man. So it's really awesome to talk to someone who's of the same cloth, who is also in their right mind, a great artist and great guitar player. And I'm holding up Ruffians record I want to talk about real quick, Desert of Tears. Is this like a greatest hits record, or is this an actual release?
That album was the album when we got back together in 2004. We played a couple tours in Europe, and then we did an album. We did a new album.
Okay.
So that album came out in 2006, and then
Okay.
It's a new album.
And the Control record.
That you have is a band that I had for a while with Michael Coons, this lead singer from Laaz Rockit.
Mm-hmm.
And this Mike was still in Laaz. Ruffians had just kind of broken up. We kind of were done. So that was a band around 89, 90. And
this is the Hellraiser record.
Yeah. And so that was like an AC/DC type band, sort of a Rhino Bucket type thing. But it was before Rhino Bucket.
Yeah.
we were playing
right before Rhino Bucket, dude. I had a control demo with a green cover on cassette. Does that sound familiar to you?
Probably, yeah. Well, Control. There's another Control that Doug Piercy from Man Before Us had, and that was before this Control.
But was it an AC/DC kind of disciple type of
band? Yeah, they had a metal band, but the Control thing was an AC/DC style band. We just wanted to do something completely different. So me, Mike, and a friend of mine, Phil, he was the brainchild behind that, and so we did that. And that album actually just came out a while back because Jürgen Chalmler from in Germany, the key player for getting a lot of bands together.
Hi, Jürgen.
Yeah, hi, Jürgen. We love you. And he put that out. So yeah, that's what that Control thing's all about. Me and Coons,
very cool.
Some AC/DC style stuff.
Yeah, I swear this Control demo that I got it from someone in Los Angeles about 1988. Were you guys together then?
That would have been Doug Piercy's Control.
But it's crazy to me. I'm sorry to keep saying this. It's crazy to me that Control was also an AC/DC disciple. No,
I don't think so, man.
Okay, then this had to be you, and it had to be.
Because the band
had to be 90s. It had to be you, because it was definitely
AC/DC Control sounding band. Then then it would have been us. So that sounds about right. But yeah, there's good stuff coming out of the Bay Area, man. Even now, there's a band called Hellfire. You familiar with them?
Don't know that name.
No. I like the name though.
Heavy metal. Yeah, it's Hellfire. Heavy metal band. In tradition of like not real heavy thrash, but they're in the thrash vein. They're just good heavy metal band, good like 80s metal stuff, and like new wave of British heavy metal.
Cool.
And they're called Hellfire. They're from the Bay Area. Death Angel took them out on tour in the States, and so they're really holding the torch, man, for that style of metal that we were playing back in the 80s. So check them out. There's another band called Haunt, H-A-U-N-T, for the Bay Area, another metal band. So there's something happening now too. With
Haunt, one of the guys in Haunt is the son of Bill Church. Is that right?
Yeah, the bass player from
Montrose. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Sean Weingartner is a big fan of Haunt.
Yeah,
that sounds
what
right.
I heard. It's like, dude, your dad was in Montrose.
I know. How cool is that?
Yeah, Dude, I was hanging out with the son of the bass player from Montrose. Freaking
When I asked him about his dad, he was kind of embarrassed when I started drooling over Montrose. That first Montrose album could come out tomorrow and it'd be fucking timeless.
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
incredible. It's crazy that Sammy was only like 23 when he recorded that.
Yeah. Well, it
Kid.
seems about right. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah,
I have
rock
my
and roll.
Yeah.
my CD cover. Sorry, it's not vinyl, but signed by Sammy, and I got to ask him. He's like, "Yeah, I was 23 when I made that record." Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, how old were you when you made the first Toys record?
23,
See,
22.
Kind of how it works. Yeah.
It's kind of how it works. Yeah.
Well, Craig, man, thank you for
It's been
letting
great,
us.
man.
Yeah, thanks for letting us pick your brain. I've said this numerous times on the podcast. Sometimes we get people on the show that have multiple albums in my record collection, and sometimes we get people who are sort of, lurking in the shadows and have been part of the scene and helped drive the engine. And
Well put.
those stories are always as interesting, if not more so, to me anyway, because they're the stories that nobody else has. So.
Well, and they're real. It's like what you said. It's kind of you can't move your scene without muscle. Someone's hanging up posters and shit. Someone's printing cool T-shirts.
Yeah.
Someone's playing the cool deep cuts. Someone is writing music that is going to help propel the band that is the opening band someday.
And it's always interesting when someone has a perspective as unique as yours, when you're able to share your stories with us, and we do appreciate it. I know I said this when we had Harry O on the show. I have people that I hang out with that think I have crazy stories, and I'm like, I've got nothing on Harry and Craig.
Kind of right.
I'm sure you do. I mean, there's a lot more I'm sure we could have gotten to, and a few things where I kind of had to stop myself from getting long-winded. A few thoughts, but yeah, we'll talk more some other time, and there's more stories to be told, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do this again for sure.
Well, thank you for being with us today and sharing the stories that you did. And if we need to do a part 2, we can always look forward to doing that at some point in the future. But
so plug your T-shirt printing company.
Yeah,
I have a real job.
I'm glad.
And,
I do too.
It pays the bills.
Yeah.
And so me and my business partner Aaron Jellum, Laaz Rockit, we're keeping it heavy metal in the Bay Area, business wise or not.
Yeah.
And we have a screen printing business, and so we do tour merch for bands and stuff like that. We do bands for shirts for Death Angel, Testament, and a lot of people. So yeah, man, if you need T-shirts, hit us up. It's called TNT Screen Printing, and we're in Oakland, California. And we do tour merchandise or shirts for your kid's bar mitzvah. I mean, whatever you want, man.
Perfect. Good
Nice.
plug. And what about if people wanted to find that Ruffians record? Where can I get that? Stuff like that. What's the best way for them to get that autographed by you?
Yeah, well,
something like that.
Yeah, send $1.50 in an envelope.
Has to be stamped.
Envelope.
Have
it has
to
to be a
lick
stick
stamps.
envelope because I need that 50 cents.
Yeah.
You can go out there and you can find Ruffian stuff. There's a few labels that reissued it. There's one called Old School Records. There's a label called High Roller Records.
Yes.
They're out of Europe. They re-released some stuff on vinyl. There's you can find the old SPV stuff out there. So yeah, there's still Ruffian stuff out there, and it's
cool.
The first album at some point was going for a vinyl for like $300, whatever.
I believe
but now as re-releases come out, it devalues that stuff a little bit. So yeah, you can find stuff, man. And if you ever want to reach out to me, just look me up. I'm easy to find, and be more than happy to have me and whoever else is around from the band sign your stuff. And yeah, man.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Craig. Thanks for being with us today. It was great picking your brain. Really enjoyed it.
Hey, Dave, man, it's really nice to meet you, man. It's nice to connect. And Jason, man, like I said, we don't get that time, man. I just there's from the day when we met, there's always kind of a connection, and it's really nice to talk to you. And thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, it's good to see you. You look great. You look healthy. Congrats to 25 years with your wife, and glad your business has been. How long has TNT been around?
We've been around for a little over 30 years. So like,
holy shit,
1990. And as long as my wife, I kind of gauge it the day when we started, because I was with my wife for a good, whatever, I don't know, 5 years or so before we got married. So
you're doing stuff right. You're doing stuff right, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Erin's my wife just as much as my wife is. So.
There you have it. He's in it for the long run.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Craig, thank you so much. I appreciate it. On behalf of myself, Metal Dave, my co-host Jason McMaster, special thanks to our guest Craig Behrhorst today on another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.